So hello everybody and welcome back to the Winning Agenda's coverage of the online Twilight Struggle League 2023. I'm Jesse Muleman Marshall and this time we are playing as the USSR. Good luck, have fun to our opponent. Alright, so 2 US games in a row and now 2 USSR games in a row. We'll just double check before we commit. We're not going to try any crazy Comic-Con tricks. We've got Asia scoring, so we could potentially headline that with this hand. It's a bit of an awkward hand, really. We've got no Asia access, and no other good headlines. So I think it is actually probably going to be Asia scoring. We might coup with duck and cover AR1. Potentially, although we might coup with duck and cover AR2 instead to potentially deprive them of a coup. So let's have a look. We've also got UN intervention for either duck and cover or NORAD. We've got CIA created, which will play probably later in the turn. So not a powerful aggressive hand, but this means they probably, hopefully, have a bit more of a difficult hand, and we do have a few 3-ups. So the only big problem for us is no 4-ups, and if we get purged, this hand's going to be a lot worse. Cool. So yeah, probably a headline Asia scoring here. If they headline US Japan, I think I'm okay with that. Warsaw Pact in the headline phase, Comic-Con in the headline phase, not going to do a lot for us unless we tried some kind of Comic-Con realign setup in the headline phase, but I'm not really interested in that here. I think too many people are aware of that these days and play around it. So we'll headline the Asia scoring, get that out of the way. Hey Michael, thank you. Thanks for the good luck. And Europe scoring for them. So 2 scoring cards out of the way in the headline phase on turn 1. So the advantage to duck and covering now is that we give them fewer VPs because we can event it first. We also don't have to duck and cover at all, but then we're probably spacing NORAD, so we're missing out on some VPs that way. So I think I'm actually okay with... So the thing about duck and covering and eventing it first is we don't get to coup Italy, but I don't think we want to coup Italy with a 3-up on 4 influence. I think we're just happy to coup Iran here. So we'll trigger duck and cover first, and then we'll coup Iran. And this means that they do get the last say on the coup, but it also means they kind of have to coup now. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. I mean, Middle East is the only unscored region now, so yeah, like maybe not coupping there is better with duck and cover. Maybe UN intervention duck and cover is better, but I kind of always feel like having more ops is the better option, and having the NORAD be a playable card with the UN intervention. Yeah, so CIA created, I mean, we can hold these to be our last couple of ARs. The UN intervention, NORAD, CIA created containment is going to be our last AR. But that way, if we do need to space NORAD and UN and CIA, we can do that if they play Fidel. But if they don't play Fidel or Decol, then we're going to be able to play the CIA for free. Or largely free. Okay, so they headlined Europe scoring rather than Purge. Wowee. Okay. We'll just go ahead and take back Iran here, I think, which is not too much of a problem. It does mean that they have access in this area, but we've got a few ops here and we're going to be able to do a few things for the rest of this turn, so it's not too bad. So very glad that they didn't headline that Purge and that they headlined Europe scoring instead. Presumably that means they've got a bit of a difficult hand with some red events, so they felt like they needed the ops and the rest of their hand wasn't playable, because if they had any kind of reasonably playable hand, then you would think that headlining Purge and saving the Europe scoring to try and get some points would be better, considering the US's advantage in the early war. Okay, so it looks like they do have a not great hand, Blockade and D-Stel. Okay, so Blockade's getting out of the deck. They're playing into Lebanon. So they might have the Middle East scoring card here. So we'll go ahead and play 1 into Syria to give ourselves domination, 1 into Pakistan to give ourselves first access over there, pardon me, and 1 into South Korea to threaten to take South Korea next turn, to put a bit of pressure on them. So by making that play, we're putting pressure in the Middle East with the domination, and we're putting pressure in Asia with threatening to take South Korea. So they event Korean War, and we get the influence, which is really handy. So yeah, pretty red hand, which is good. We had a pretty blue hand, and that's one of the advantages always as the Soviets in the early war is if you don't have your events, it's actually better for them to have your events because then you get them for free, and you disrupt their plays. So I never feel too bad about having a blue hand as long as it's got some of the 3s. The problem is if they get all the 3s and you get like all the 1s and all the neutral ones and the red ones, then that's really bad. And those are kind of the worst Soviet hands. But at least here, depending on what they do with this 2-ups, we can hopefully get CIA out of our hand for free. As I said, if they do play Decol or they play Fidel, it's going to be annoying. So for that reason, I would kind of be more glad if they didn't put these 2 ops into South Korea, so that we could just finish South Korea off with CIA created. But we'll see what they do. Also, they're leaving France empty, so at this stage, I mean, they might have Decol in hand. We'll find out because they blockaded themselves. They'll have to play out their whole hand. If they don't have Decol in hand, then at this stage, we're in a decent position to draw Decol and, get into Algeria and then into France, as well as obviously getting a good position in Thailand. So yeah, it's an interesting one, that duck and cover AR1. It did cost us a little bit. It meant that, they got the last coup and blah, blah, blah. But giving them fewer VPs and getting the difficult card out of our hand, I think is a good result. All right, and this is a great result because we can go place on influence here. Reveal our hand. They can't hurt us with Defcon. And they get to place 1, maybe into Thailand, and that's okay. Because if we can control Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, South Korea, North Korea, India, then we're still in good shape even if they beat us to Thailand. I think it's the USSR, if you can be in a decent spot in the Middle East, get South Korea and have control of North Asia, it's a pretty good spot to be. Anything else is kind of gravy. So they did have Decol and D-Style and blockade. Wow. Okay, they win on the space, which is unfortunate. We get to UN intervention, no rad, and probably go 1 Pakistan, 2 Afghanistan, I reckon. Maybe not. Maybe we say take the 5+ war if you've got it in your last 2 cards. I don't know. I really don't want to. I mean, they can already war us because we've got 1 in there. So how do we want to play this? We can put 1 in Pakistan and break West Germany, for example, and then throw to take France with containment if they war us. Or we get to take India with containment if they don't war us. Well, that's probably okay. Or we can just go into India and forget about taking Pakistan, because I think walking over towards UN intervention. All right, I think walking over towards Thailand is probably better at this stage. Putting 1 into Israel could also be good. So we could go 1, it's either 1, 2, 3, I think, or 1, 2, I like that. I like the break West Germany. We'll play aggressively against their seemingly difficult to manage hand. And this does give them the 4+ on the war in India, but yeah, as I said, if they play the war, then we get France, which I think is an okay trade for them to be taking a coin flip. NASA. Wow. Okay, so talk about red hands for the USA. Wowee. And they go 1 in France. Okay. So we can now take both India and Pakistan if we want, but I'm happy to just leave 1 in India, I think, and go 1 Burma, I think. I think 1 Burma, 2 Libya. Is the way to go here. If we put 1 in France, then we're threatening to take it with a 3-op card, but at the moment we're threatening to take it with a 4-op card, and De Gaulle and Suez are both in the deck, so I think just getting them to commit an op, but also a whole AR to France there was just a big tempo win for us. And we can look at solidifying into Iraq and Saudi Arabia next turn, which is just great. I think as the USSR, if you can have the US on the back foot in Asia and Europe and be solidifying into the Middle East in the early war, then you put yourself in a great position for the mid-war in terms of OPEC. And of course, just in this particular game, it happens to be the only unscored region after the headlines on turn 1. So yeah, I feel decent about our position that we're in Asia as well, heading into the next Asia scoring. We're not going to get D-Star, we're not going to get Decol until turn 3 at the earliest, but we've had some decent access from NASA and from just walking our way across North Asia. And we did win South Korea, so that some big wins. Mirinda says, well, this is a start. Yeah, so it's an interesting start. I have to say, for our opponent, this is a killer of a hand, but I still think if they'd headlined Red Scare Purge, it would have neutered our hand to such a great extent that it probably would have been worth it for them, and then they could have popped Europe scoring at some point in the turn. Given their defensive setup with 4 in Italy, it was highly unlikely we were going to coup. Although they didn't know that, considering they only had the 1 4-op. You know, our hand could have had another 3 4-ops, and we could have been willing to coup Italy. Just so happened that we had a bunch of 3-ops, which is the worst hand to get red scared on for us. But they didn't know that. So we were just lucky that they went for the Europe scoring rather than the red scare headline. Oh, Vietnam Revolt's more access. So presumably 1 going into Thailand at least here, but probably 2. And then 1 into Pakistan as well. All right. Interesting. So no Indo-Pakistani war for us. We've got Middle East scoring, which is nice. Arab-Israeli war. Cambridge 5 is going to do nothing in the headline phase. So this may be a headline Olympic Games, or it might be a headline Middle East scoring, but I think we want to try and really drum up some advantage with these to get a good score out of the Middle East here, even better than what we've got at the moment. Thing is, we don't really want a coup, so it's we don't want a coup, but we're also vulnerable to coups. So are we going to spend our AR1 coup in Panama? Is there anything we can do in the headline phase? These are the 2 questions that confront us. We could just score the Middle East to take the 5 points to take off some of the coup pressure. Yeah, I agree, Mirinda. Slowing the USSR down is huge on turn 1. That is true. Yes, so taking off some of the coup pressure would be Middle East scoring, so that then they have to spend a good ops card coupping Iran, Libya, or Egypt, presumably Iran. But then we missed the point. We missed the chance to get more countries. But I think I'm happy to just snap off the 5 points from the Middle East, which is a pretty good result. And fight for Asia on our AR1, Asia and or France. I mean, if we just take France AR1, that's pretty huge. So yeah, I think that's the right... Oh, no, I can get defectors. We don't have defectors. We don't want to... We haven't seen it. There's a pretty high chance they have it in hand. Yeah, okay. We're going to go with Olympic Games. We're going to play the more disciplined way rather than... I just want to be super aggressive with this board state. I'm just like, I want to go for it. But let's be disciplined about it. Okay, capture Nazi scientists. So they did not have defectors. We win the 2VPs. What a success. Okay. See, yeah, like now we're in this position where we can go like 3 Iraq or Saudi Arabia and 1 somewhere else, but that's not great, like 1 France. And then if they coup, we get to do something else, but I'm not feeling great about that. I also feel like there's a pretty decent chance they have IP war. So if we go into India, Pakistan, Burma, we want to be trying to take all of them at once. So we want to be spending, well, now it's 5 ops because they put 1 into Pakistan. So that's a bit awkward. Yeah, like I said, I think taking France is probably a decent enough prize. But getting the mill ops from the coup is also nice. But if we don't coup and then they coup, I think we still are very likely to dominate the Middle East and we can get mill-ups from Arab-Israeli war. The only problem is it makes Indo-Pakistani war a little worse for us if they coup us out of Iran. The other option for us is to coup Lebanon, so that if they coup and fail, then they don't have presence. I don't hate that idea. Like they kind of have to respond to that by putting quite a few ops in somewhere or queuing. So that's an interesting one. I might actually try that here. Queuing Lebanon deprives them of presence. The cheapest presence that they can get back is queuing us back in Lebanon, or queuing a battleground or playing 2 into Jordan. I think any of those is okay. It's only if we roll a 1 and we just remove them from Lebanon that this doesn't work so well. So obviously the other option is to coup Panama. The reason I'm not mentioning that much is it's just not really a good tempo play for us with the way the board is at the moment. Like we've got quite a few things that are just sitting there waiting for tempo. So I'm going to give this a go and just try and put some pressure on them. They can coup us back in Lebanon, that's fine. And then we'll think about how we want to go. Otherwise, they can coup us in a battleground and hopefully they fail or roll poorly, and then we can respond with a high ops card. So what we really want them to do, yeah, obviously is coup Libya, coup Iran, or coup Egypt, and roll, like use a 4-op and roll a 1 would be amazing. 4-op and roll a 2 would also be decent, because then we can respond with fixing the issue and moving somewhere else, or just popping off the Middle East scoring. Because queuing a battleground for them is super risky here because they don't have presence. Like if they don't actually get into the Middle East with their coup, like successful coup, plus, then we get to score presenceless Middle East scoring, which is pretty huge. Not that they know that we have Middle East scoring, but it's the only unscored region. So yeah, 5 ops if we want to take Pakistan, India, and Burma in the one action round at the moment. 4 ops to take France. So it would be nice for us to try and get 1 into that Indo-Pakistani region, probably 1 into Burma, and go 1 into Laos. Like Laos is an important country to get for brush war reasons as well. So for me, it would kind of be Burma, Laos, France, other places I would like to go next, and then probably look to Pakistan and India after that. Although, depending on if they coup Iran or not. Okay, so that's a decent result for us. Puts us back to 5. Pennypode, welcome down. Puts us back to 5. Lets us go, for instance, take Iraq and put one in Laos. So we can see if we want to do that. 1, 2, 3, and put one in Laos, or we can. I think the one in. Oh, it's hard. Is the one in Burma or the one in Laos more important here? Laos, because they can take it, but I don't think they're going to go into Laos next AR. But is that one VP from Iraq that important, or is taking France more important here as well? That's the other question that we have to ask ourselves. I think taking France is good. The thing is here, yeah, if they have a high up coup, we go down to 3. Like it's worth 2 VPs if they successfully coup us out of Iran or Libya. Possibly more if they successfully coup us out of Iran. But I think France is worth more than 2 VPs over the rest of the game for us. So I think I'm okay with this. It's also 2 VPs for us to coup. So yeah, there's a lot of pulls on our tempo here. Like it's 2 VPs from Milops for us to coup, except that I'm banking on the fact that they have the Indo-Pakistani war and they want to play that later in the game. So I'm not locking in those 2 Milops VPs. I don't. In general, if you've watched a lot of my games, you'll see that I don't generally value Milops VPs particularly highly, or speculative Milops VPs, in the sense that I prefer to prioritize board position. But I could use Milops more aggressively. Like it's a perfectly reasonable tactic in Twilight Struggle, particularly if you have a strong opening, to try and use Milops and VPs to put pressure on your opponent. It's probably something that I don't do enough of. But particularly on this turn with this board position, thinking that I'm going to try and bait my opponent to use the war by, for instance, putting 2 into Pakistan at some point this turn and saying, okay, have the 5+ or the 6+. And at that point, it's like, do I want to have just couped Panama to try and lock in some Milops VPs and then have our opponent do that? I mean, if our opponent just ignores Europe, we can just put 4 into West Germany here as well. There's nothing stopping us doing that. Not that I think that is the play that I'll make, but just from our opponent's perspective, it's starting to look a bit dangerous, which is one of the other powerful things about going to France at this point as the USSR. Plus, we get Algeria access too. It obviously didn't have to be 4 into France, but I think there's something to be said for it. Especially since we're going back into potential Europe scoring next turn, gives us access to Spain and Portugal for a cheap non-battleground country, in addition to Turkey. Like taking France more than Lebanon coup. Yeah, the thing about the Lebanon coup was that it forced them to make a supremely suboptimal play. Like, given how many important battleground countries are sitting here without influence in them, including they haven't retaken West Germany, Pakistan, India, and all these Middle East battlegrounds, they just put 2 into Jordan, which is a super bad play at this point. Like, Jordan is not only a country that is relatively expensive, and not getting them closer to dominating any regions. But it's a country that they have the advantage in taking in the mid-war because of Camp David Accords. Like, they get a free influence in there. So putting 2 in there in the early war is like super bad for the US. The other thing about not going into Lao for me here on that last AR is decol is obviously still out there. Now, Lao is not a great target for decol when you already have adjacency to it. If you're going to go somewhere in Southeast Asia as the USSR right now, it's probably going to be Indonesia, into a non-battleground, that is, if we're not putting one into Thailand to try and flip it with the China card. But considering we can go Nigeria, Angola with decol, we do have Algeria access, so we don't need to decol into there. So it does free up one of the decol influence if we draw it, to go to Southeast Asia, to Africa. So like one in Nigeria, one in Angola, and then two into Southeast Asia, which could conceivably be Laos and Thailand, or Indonesia and Laos, but I think it's more likely to be Indonesia, Thailand. All right, so our opponent gives us over control of France, which is cool. But they do have 3 ops to spend here, and they opt to take Pakistan. So that, I think, is probably our signal to... so we can consider taking India, but India is still reasonably expensive for them. And even if they have the war, they're going to have to... they're going to probably have to play it this turn, or they could potentially hold it to turn 3. So this starts to get a little bit dangerous for us in Asia if we don't flip Thailand. If they get India, Pakistan, Thailand, and Japan, it's a pretty solid domination. And then we have to start fighting them on non-battlegrounds, which is a bit harder. So the question for us becomes now, how much do we want to spend our US-Japan pact sandbagging in Asia versus taking Middle East countries? And I think, so one option is to do something like 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, which is not a super aggressive play, but it's also okay, because if we draw decol, we can still flip. If they don't coup, we can still flip. The question is whether we have to do that this AR, or whether we can just pop the Middle East scoring. I'm trying to think about from their perspective of their plays so far. I think all indications are they have another hand that's not particularly strong. But we don't have another 3-op to cleanly take Iraq here. So we'd have to use the US-Japan pact and then like put one in Burma or something, which is a bit meh. The other option, as I said before, is to jam into West Germany, but with the 4-ops. But I'm not super keen on giving up on Asia. Although, playing into India and giving them the 5+ on the war there is also pretty bad from a mil-ops perspective. So I think I'll just do this and just see what their plays are. We can keep developing the Middle East anyway, and then if we redraw Middle East scoring next turn, it's pretty good for us. And we can also keep... this also, the longer we leave DEFCON at 3 is the longer that they can't play into Angola safely as well. Which is good, because it gets us closer to possibly redrawing decol without them walking into Angola and Zaire. Yeah, this is almost a break UK with special relationship situation, but I think given that we can cop one in France, the only thing about them going one in France, giving them one in France as special relationship, is it gives them Algeria access, which I'm not super happy about. Okay, space racing, soc gov, failure, that's nice. All right, so we got that tempo break that we wanted, and now we get to think about what we want to do with the rest of our ops this turn. I don't think we're going to play Arab-Israeli war, so now I think, given they're signaling to us that they don't have a great hand, I'm pretty happy to just go ahead and coup Panama here. Try and lock in those mil-ops VPs. They might still play IP war, but do we really need to do that? Given everything else we've said about DEFCON. DEFCON being high is good because it's threatening a China card coup next turn on Pakistan or Thailand. So they kind of have to degrade DEFCON, and they're signaling to us that they don't have a great hand for coups. So I actually think coups still is bad for us here. I think we're better off taking a non-battleground in Europe, jamming into West Germany, or spreading in Asia. So what I think I'm actually going to do is it's like, do I just go for West Germany and try and jam it? I do kind of like that here. It's a good pressure play. Why not? If they're not going to honour their defensive obligations, then we can go with that. Do we want to do it that way though, because we're giving them Japan, or do we want to start taking some non-battlegrounds first? Because I don't want to give them Asia domination like that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they have the war here. I think it's better probably to just go 1 Lao, 1 Burma. Like, I just get the feeling that they so badly want to play Indo-Pakistani War this turn, so I'm trying to play around it at all costs. And I don't want to give them the prize of being able to take 3 from India. So what do I want to do? I think I can just go 2 in Portugal and just see what they do. So we get to play a 3-op special relationship. Alright, Suez Crisis. 3-up special relationship that is not going to trigger anything, which is nice. It actually was incorrect to take Portugal there. We should have probably taken... That's not incorrect. Like they can take Portugal, but we don't get Greece adjacency, whereas we would have if we played into Turkey. But those are trade-offs, I guess. Because there is always, you know, the increased DEFCON and reline France play. So if we have Portugal and Algeria, then it makes that a lot harder for them to ever do that for the rest of the game. It'd be interesting to see where they go here. I mean, it could be a coup. No, it's influence. 2 UK, 1 Greece. Wow, okay. That is interesting. So yeah, I kind of think we want to keep avoiding India. It's the very awkward thing about this. We can try and go for Middle East control. Alright, it's a little bit greedy. I also think breaking Thailand is a bit greedy. I think I probably like overprotect 2, 3. Don't want to go into Algeria with DEFCON at 3. Probably 1 in Israel is good here. Or is Iraq or Saudi Arabia better? No, I think Israel's better. So Israel's susceptible to Camp David Accords, but it's also for them susceptible to Arab-Israeli war. It's also more stable in general. So it's a tough one. And if we're going for control, it's like, it's going to be expensive either way. So if they don't play into West Germany, we can go last AR3 into West Germany. We can also go 3 into either of the, or any of the Middle East battlegrounds that are still open. Or we can put 1 into Thailand or 1 into Pakistan to threaten to flip that and do something else. Or we can coup Panama if we wish. But I don't think we want to coup Panama, because I think we want to kind of force them to coup and leave open a China card coup in Asia. So give us Romania, which is going to make Middle East, Europe domination that little bit easier. Okay, so let's trigger this event, I think. Or do we want to place in UK? I don't think we want to place in UK still. So yeah, let's trigger this, give them Algeria access, but that's okay. They can have an operations point in France. And then we will just take Iraq. So now if they play the war, then DEFCON goes up to 4 and we get to coup, which is kind of nice. If they coup, then they haven't got, no, they have got mill-ups, they just haven't played the war. So they're probably going to coup rather than play the war. It seems like a better option. I think for us coupping Panama there, yeah, it's okay. But we are seriously threatening Middle East control now. Could have gone West Germany for the threatening to take at AR1 next turn for a pretty strong Europe domination, but I feel like our Europe domination is decent. They might have headline independent Reds next turn, because I don't think they've... Oh no, they did play it this turn. They still might have it next turn. But that's okay. We haven't seen Truman too, so we do need to be aware of that. If they put 1 into France, or even play a 4-op into France here, then headline Truman, that's pretty unfortunate for us and will rue our special relationship play. But even then, we can still retake France with a 4-op, so it's not the end of the world. Oh no, we wouldn't be able to, because they would be placing 2 ops in. Yeah, so if they have a 4-op here and they play into France, yeah, it's pretty bad. Oh, they're cooing. Wow, all right. That's a decent result for them, but also good for us. So they did have Truman. So if they'd played 2 into France there and drawn Truman, that would have been pretty sickening. So we did kind of leave ourselves open to that. But as it is, we get a pretty good hand here. We've got defectors, which is great. They could have scoring cards, we don't know. We've got D-Style, which is fantastic, obviously, for setting ourselves up for the mid-war, using some of our surplus influence. And we can headline Red Scare. We're pretty sure they're holding IP War. I mean, we know they've got it now either way. So, the question is, do we want to headline Red Scare or D-Style? I don't think there's all that much of an argument for headlining D-Style here. the main argument for it is that it would allow us to coup Iran and then immediately start spreading with more available ops from Red Scare, spreading in South America, that is. But I'm not too fussed about that. I don't think I'd rather slow them down and then D-style an action round, I think, because our D-style influence is going to be probably one out of Lebanon, or even one out of Lebanon, one out of Finland, one out of Austria, and one out of Vietnam. And that'll allow us to go South America and Africa. It's a pretty good get, really. I mean, Red Scare is really good in the early war on Purge as the Soviets. But I think we want the tempo and the access here, because Blockade's already out of the deck. We've got D-Style. A lot of the objectives that you have for playing Purge, they've also played just a lot of red events and removed them from the deck. So, I mean, whilst that does indicate that they're probably going to have a stronger ops hand this turn, I think just setting ourselves up for the mid-war is good. Okay, so headline duck and cover gets them some VPs. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we can go 1, 2, 3. Do we want to go Mexico rather than Nigeria? I don't think so. I think that will do. So 1, 2, 3. Pretty happy with where we're at in the other regions, so we'll just start off here. So they're going to try and use IP War to get some VPs, I think, from Millops this turn. And we don't have a way to get Millops, but that's okay. So probably want to do this at the end of the turn. So we know they've got NATO as a 4-op card. So they could take India here. We know we haven't got decol at least this turn. So, you know, Asia is looking like a bit of a potential problem for us, but still having the China card is helpful. But we do obviously have this good position in the Middle East, good position in Europe, and I think moving into Africa and South America in such a powerful way there was a pretty strong play to set ourselves up for the mid-war as the Soviets. And we know they've got Fidel as well. So they are going to have to potentially give us Cuba this turn, or Space Fidel. With the way the board's looking, you know, spacing Fidel might not be the worst thing for them. They've still left West Germany. I mean, I just don't think we're going to touch it. If they continue leaving it for too long and we get towards the end of this turn, our 5-year plan might end up going there, but I think we've got enough access now, enough things we want to do. Okay, so they've got this, and they've got another 4-op coming, so it's quite a lot. They do take Algeria, and they do fix West Germany. Fair enough. So Algeria could have been a better take for us there, considering they had adjacency. We can also play into Tunisia and try and realign Algeria if we want, but that's a pretty bad play. So we know they've got IP War. We don't really want to move into India and give them a good target for that. But we do want to think about whether we can try and create some tempo pressure on them somewhere. I was wondering about Algeria, but hard to get to that and do all the other things. Yeah, it's hard to do everything all at once. And we're still in decent shape. I think going Brazil to Chile is good. And we do want to get 3 into Venezuela and probably going to Uruguay. Might even want to put 3 into Uruguay. Actually, probably Paraguay's better. Yeah, I think Paraguay's the best country to go into, actually. Because if they coup it, it's just a bit more awkward. Have some conniving, not good ideas, but conniving at least, yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting, as the Soviets, when you have this kind of spread and you're trying to keep your fingers in all the damn holes at once. I mean, I'm sure our opponent feels like they're under a lot of pressure, but they're doing their best to try and plug it all up, which is very admirable. They had a pretty shocking first hand, and the second hand was all right. Yeah, I think that the 4-op coup Iran with Marshall Plan there, a couple of things like probably coupping Libya may be better, just as a bit of a more stable country for the US. You know, I never feel comfortable in any game of Twilight Struggle when I'm vulnerable in Asia, which is where I am at the moment. So that is what's making me most nervous. But I think playing around giving them a profitable war did pay real dividends for us last turn, even if they didn't have it. But if they did have it, then making them spend their Marshall Plan coupping Iran made a huge difference. Because, yeah, if they had actually noticed the jam into France and then Truman Doctrine us in the headline, that would have been a hell of a lot worse for us than them duck and covering. So independent Reds for influence, 2 into South Africa. So now I'm tempted to just go 1 Angola, 2 Botswana. I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to trigger EAU. That is fine. We still have domination. So we'll go 1, 2. It gives them a coup target, but that's also a coup target for us. And it gives us Africa domination, and it gives us a strong realign. So I'm okay with all of these things. And the other thing is the Soviets is starting off getting influence into non-battlegrounds in Africa. South America and Central America is good just because of Shay. Like having Shay be an active threat means that doing some of that guerrilla warfare in those regions is helpful. And you can try and set up some more realigns and things like that. Although those who've been long-time viewers of the channel would be well aware of my woes with realigning Angola. No matter how much my advantage is, it never works out well. So thankfully we're sitting pretty in Angola right now. For now at least. So yeah, very much hope they've got a scoring card, although them going into South Africa indicates they probably don't have a scoring card. They did fix West Germany, they did fix Iran this turn. So it's possible they have one of those two, but they haven't. The play into South Africa indicates they're not really trying to force the issue tempo-wise. I was thinking conniving early to surrender Algeria in the non-BG to give a coup target when the US coups one of them. It's possible, but we don't really want to coup with this hand all that much. Like, we'd rather just keep spending our influence placing in countries where we have the adjacency advantage. So they do give us Fidel, and then maybe coup Botswana. Nope, influence in Panama, Saharan states. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of nice. Like, I'm happy to take the coup in these circumstances. We'll just give them Formosan, I think. I'll give them defectors first. That's a decent roll. It means that it's harder for them to coup back effectively. Like, they just have to put a higher ops card into it. Even a 2 ops card's not guaranteed to be good there. And if they don't coup this AR, then they just end up in an awkward realignment position. So they coup with the war, which means that we can now take India, which is lovely. They roll poorly. So the question is, do we take India this AR? I think given we know they have NATO, we just do take India. So we'll just go Formosan Resolution into India. And then we've got still great realigns, so they have to spend another... Surprised they didn't hold the IP war threat for longer? Yeah. So the cards we know they've got in hand are NATO, so they must be trying to save that for the end of the turn. And I think that's all. I think we've seen everything else. We knew they had Fidel, but they just played that and gave us the event, which was lovely. I think all the other red events have come out from what I can think of. They could have redrawn Warsaw Pact or something like that, but they could have redrawn any number of things. I hadn't liked all that defensive play around IP war. US could have pressured Asia dominance quite easily with India open for so long, but it worked out. Yeah, it's possible, but yeah, you can't do everything. And if they pressured Asia domination on turn 2 and we drew decol on turn 3, it's just super bad because we can just headline decol and flip Thailand. So it was a kind of matter for them of how much can they afford to be doing that. They also might not have had it themselves on turn 2, so they might have been playing around it as well. Okay, so they Truman Doctrine into Malaysia, so Truman's still alive, which is a bit awkward. They haven't played NATO yet, so we're just going to trigger 5-year plan, give them another special relationship influence, and then think about what we want to do with this. So we want to play around Voice of America, so we'll go 1 into Argentina, 1 into Venezuela. We're already playing around Voice of America in the southern region because they can only remove 2 per country. So we want to go 1 into France. I mean, they do have NATO, but they're not able. They've played Truman, so they're not playing like a break and then Truman combo. So we'll go 1 into France, 1 into Venezuela, 1 into Argentina, which gives us control. And we're playing around VOA. 5-year plan is special relationship twice. Yep, twice in a row. 2 turns in a row. So we'll see what they've got. They've got NATO, and the question is, do they have a scoring card? It doesn't look like it, given their pattern of play so far. And we've got the potential, pretty strong realigns in Africa still at the moment. Just love the +1 realigns. Yeah. Yeah, the thing about realigns is sometimes you spend an hour doing it and you have these dreams, and then it turns out you've just quagmired yourself because your realigns fail, and then they headline Voice of America next turn and undo everything you did in South America, and you just stare at the ceiling wondering what you've done with your life. So influence from NATO breaking into... Interesting, okay. Southeast Asia scoring not great for us. Junta fantastic for us, especially since we know that we've got no defectors to worry about. Central America scoring off the back of Junta, also nice. So what we might actually do, since we've got Central America scoring, is headline Junta, 2 into Mexico, coup Colombia, and then coup Panama AR1. But we're going to have to think about that. We're not going to headline Missile Envy. And we do have to, of course, worry about these 2 events. We've also got Southeast Asia scoring, which is a bit awkward. How I Learned isn't doing heaps for us, given where we're at. So yeah, I think we're just pretty happy to headline Junta. They could have VOA, they could have grain sales, they could have ABM, they could have brush war. All these things are good. But Junta is a pretty good start to the mid-war, especially since we have Central America scoring. obviously it'll be annoying if they headline Europe scoring here, but salt negotiations. Okay, what are we grabbing? Truman Doctrine? No, it doesn't do anything. Red Scare Purge? Indo-Pakistani War? Maybe? Salt negotiations for IP War is a bit weird though. We can just Red Scare Purge. Okay. That is intriguing. So given we know that they just got Red Scare Purge and that DEFCON's at 5, I think we actually want to coup Panama rather than Colombia here. Although it's a bit awkward because of DEFCON. We can just event How I Learned next and put DEFCON down to 2 if we want to, if we care about DEFCON being high. But we do have the China card. We can China card coup Thailand since we have Southeast Asia scoring. So we can... I just don't think 2-op couing Panama under Salt is going to be helpful for us. So I think couing Colombia is going to be better. So we can go coup Colombia. The other option, oh yeah, so we're placing 2 there. The other option is just coup Panama to try and get them out so that they don't have presence. But 3 VPs is like, I'm pretty happy to just take that from Central America. We just need to make sure we degrade DEFCON so they can't realign us out of France. That's the only real thing here. Okay, well, let's just do this. Oop. Get them out of Colombia. And then, so 4-op coup on Thailand. It's like China card coup when Salt is active is not super ideal, is it? Couing Malaysia and stuff is not good either. I'm kind of happy to just How I Learned here, I think. I think there's really that much for us to achieve with DEFCON high. Especially under Salt. Like if we could China card coup Thailand profitably here, that would be good, but I think we just can't. So setting it to 2 is the way to go. With all of our, I mean, it kind of makes sense from their perspective. Like one way for them to get back into the game is to be like, I'm going to get a 4-op and I'm going to guarantee myself a coup this turn. So that I can coup into Africa, I can coup into South America, particularly if they have South America scoring in hand and no feasible way to access the battlegrounds at the moment. So that's what that kind of telegraphs to me, is that that's what might be going on. So the other thing we can do here is play Missile Envy to try and get that Red Scare Purge. And 5 influence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. Seems good. Yeah, so we can Missile Envy to try and hit Red Scare Purge. Obviously, we can't really do that because if they have We Will Bury You, we just lose. So we're not going to, but it's just something to keep in mind. All right, flipping Nigeria, interesting. So they might have Africa scoring here, it looks like. But we are still looking good on the realigns, so I think we'll just give it a burl. Be nice to have a 3-op here, wouldn't it? But unfortunately we don't, so we're just going to have to go. It's like, do you take the +1 realign here in Algeria or not? It's the big question. Or do we just flip Nigeria with flower power? Might just be better. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that if they've got Africa scoring. Makes it pretty awkward for them. And then we'll pop off these scoring cards next to ARs pretty much regardless of what they do. They're probably going to coup Saharan states, but even that's not very good. They can play into Cameroon, force us to put one into Zaire, I suppose. Yeah, I was kind of tempted to maybe look at trying to get one into Thailand, like spend 2 ops from Flower Power, putting one into Thailand, and then, you know, the other 2 ops somewhere else, so that we could threaten to flip Thailand with a China card, but I just don't think it's necessary given all the stuff we've got going on in our hand. I think scoring at this point, if we can score Southeast Asia for even, that's fine. So we'll probably play that first, I think. So what have we seen from them? We know they've got Red Scare Purge in hand. Soul Negotiations, Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact is a fascinating play there because... Okay, so they do have Africa scoring. Interesting. They must have a few problems in hand as well then. I think we might just pop off this Central America just to put a bit of pressure on them, or no, yeah, I think it's better to do that. We can try and faff around with Southeast Asia a little bit if we want, given we've got the China card. If they do elect to play into Indonesia and Philippines here, which would be a little bit mind-boggling given that how many unscored regions there are, and that yeah, we could have something good to do in South America is lethal, for example. Europe and Middle East combined almost there as well. So a pretty good couple of ARs for us. I mean, obviously we could have played into Nicaragua or Haiti for the extra couple of points there. Maybe worth it since we had control of the scoring card, but don't think so at this point. Okay, playing into Saudi. We'll just pop off Southeast Asia scoring. Get that out of here. And we are going to give them Panama Canal this turn and then try and save OAS Founded for next turn. Which means we'll also, all right, influence, so maybe Israel here for them. Yeah. Okay, so maybe they've got Middle East scoring. So we can go Arab-Israeli war, but it counts Israel, unfortunately. So what we might do instead is put one in Thailand. Yes, it does only give us Saharan States coup. I think we're going to put one into Thailand here and then try and flip that. The other option is to do our realign, but just don't think that's as urgent. I think if we can flip Thailand here, it's pretty good if they want to try and play Middle East scoring for even. Obviously, we could have broken one of their Middle East battlegrounds instead, you know, breaking Israel and then trying to force them to play it back in, but we just haven't got great plays for the rest of the turn, so I'd rather just give this a go. And then if they don't have Middle East scoring, we can even look at holding Arab-Israeli war if we flip with the China card. If we do get to flip Thailand with the China card, we can look at headlining Arab-Israeli war potentially next turn. So influence in Thailand and Cameroon. Okay. So do we coup Cameroon or do we place an extra one in Zaire? I think it's better to just place into Zaire and then does mean we use up the war though. Yeah, we don't really want to give them Panama Canal this turn, do we? So I'm going to go 1, 2. These are pretty defensive plays. Whatever. We're happy to play a bit of defense here for a little bit. They did have Middle East scoring. That's unfortunate. So we have to trigger Panama, place in Colombia so that we still have domination, even if they break us last AR here. Yeah, that was possibly a bit weaker than breaking Iran, for example. Trying to protect Zaire there. Oh, good play by them. If we'd had a 3-up, it would have just been very nice for us, but we did not keep any of our 3-ups for that point in the turn. We only had 1 3 or higher, so can't beat ourselves up too much about that. Right, let's go 1, 2, 3. I think just taking out of battlegrounds here is good. And they elect to coup us in Colombia. Okay. So we've got the South America scoring, which is lethal. The question is, can they affect it in the headline phase? Oh, it's not quite lethal at the moment because we actually have to coup them out of Colombia to make it 10 points. Okay. So I think we just want to, we don't have to try and win right now. Like this hand's not amazing, but it's decent. So we can, the options are headline Lone Gunman to try and press the advantage, coup Colombia with Lone Gunman potentially, and then play South America scoring. Depending on what they have in hand. Like if they have another scoring card, maybe we can just kill them. The other option is headline Decol, but I don't think headlining Decol is that important because we're unlikely to just flip Thailand immediately anyway. We're okay with giving them Marshall Plan this turn, Latin American Death Squads, and 2 heaps. So yeah, I think this is actually a headline Lone Gunman situation. As weird as that is. So we can use Marshall Plan, for example, if they don't have Europe scoring in hand, for relines in the middle of this turn, get them out of South Africa, Algeria, and Cameroon. Who cares about that? Ooh, VOA. Okay. Where are they VOAing us? Presumably Mexico and somewhere else. I'm glad we played around that. This is annoying though, because it means that they can degrade our South America position pretty badly in the headline phase, which is not what we wanted. So this means that we want to coup a battleground with this Lone Gunman. If they take 2 out of Mexico and 2 out of Venezuela, for example, or 2 out of Argentina, then we'll probably coup Venezuela or Nigeria, or Iran, potentially. We'll see how we go. And then we'll probably just refill things with Marshall Plan and see where we end up. So the 2 really dangerous cards in our hand are Asuri and Puppets, Asuri more so. So we can space Asuri and probably play Puppets and just cop it, even though it makes Cuba a little dangerous. So they might go something else, like they might go 2 out of Angola, 2 out of Botswana, for example, if they're worried about Africa. But I think since South America's unscored, that's probably going to be their focus. It'll be interesting to see what's in their hand too. Okay, India, Vietnam, 2 out of Venezuela. All right, so Europe scoring is pretty good for us. Muslim Revolution, OPEC. So they get ABM treaty, which is annoying. We can't repair Venezuela with one op, so we're going to have to rely on couping it successfully and removing them and giving ourselves one extra. So we're going to have to roll really well in this coup to kind of stick this South America control. Otherwise, they're going to be able to coup us out with ABM treaty, which is kind of annoying. Yeah. OPEC, Muslim Revolution, Quagmire are all pretty much unplayable for them though, so it makes it interesting. Europe scoring is going to be a challenge. Okay. So we are going to coup Venezuela. One is not exactly what we wanted. Given that we know they've got Europe scoring, we don't want to give them Marshall Plan here, which is a bit awkward. So I think we're going to play the China card. We don't just want 3, so we want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and give them China, and then try and lock in at least 5 points off South America scoring here. So hopefully this works out. Good to know that they had Europe scoring there, otherwise we were going to pretty much snap off that Marshall Plan, so good to avoid that. The other thing we can just start doing is like jamming into West Germany, although we don't have great ops. If they do spend their ABM treaty here, then the only other playable ops they really have is Alman in Tehran and Summit, because they can't play Quagmire, they can't play OPEC, and they can't really play Muslim Revolution. Well, they risk losing, 2 battleground countries for it, which is pretty bad. So we're in a decent spot to win this turn. So for them, it's like ABM, coup Argentina, or coup Venezuela. Probably coup Venezuela, especially given they've got OPEC. It's 1 less VP. So they do get the success, but we get to go back in. Or we can just take the 6. So if we go back in with 3 ops, then we're in great shape. But we don't have a playable 3 op, unfortunately. But going in with 2 is okay, because even with a 4 op card, all they can do is break Venezuela, and we know that they don't have many playable ops for the rest of the turn. So yeah, we can just go back in here. And that is that. So yeah, a strong roll from there, and we would have just popped off the scoring for 6 points, but as it is, they just play the Europe scoring, and then we just play the South America scoring, and that's it. So thanks for watching, guys. Got there in the end with the stranglehold. The France ended up being an impactful play. Asia never ended up getting scored. So that didn't hurt us too much. And the D-style into South America was, as always, if you can get that early South America score, super impactful. So yeah, thanks everybody for the GGs in the chat. Nice play. Thanks for explaining all your thinking. You're very welcome. Finally caught a game live, and it's a turn 5 win. Yeah, unusual for those of you who've watched a lot of my games. They don't tend to end on turn 5 all that often, but sometimes this is Soviets when you have a start like that. I mean, particularly our opponent's turn 1 hand was just brutal. Blockading away D-style, playing Korean War, successful for us, giving us NASA, giving us Vietnam, and spacing decol meant they weren't doing a whole lot on the board, and we were able to capitalize a bit. So yes, thanks for watching. We'll be back. I think I've got another game next weekend. It might even be against Jarib, who's I think a former champion of OTSL and a very strong player. So that'll be an exciting match. I've had some pretty tough matchups early on. Played Zimovit in my second or third game, and now I'm playing against Jarib as well. So we'll hopefully be able to get another win there, but 4-0 is a good place to be going into the rest of the competition. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.